Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on this presentation on data protection. And today we're focusing on an approach to implementing data privacy. We're Symptai Consulting, and incidentally, we have been in business since 1998, focusing primarily on IS audit, security, business assurance. As a matter of fact, we celebrated our 21st anniversary yesterday, which makes us somewhat of an adult in this business. We're industry leaders in this region in technology consulting services, providing assurance, information security, business process support, and compliance, with numerous success stories and excellent client retention rates. My name is Andrew Nooks, and I'm a director with Symptai Consulting. And as you can see there, I've been around the industry for quite some time, with about 25 years of experience, 13 of which is dedicated to information security and privacy. Just a bit of disclaimer before we get into the meat of the matter. We're not claiming that the slides and everything that you see here are our original work. The presentation is based on research and it's collated from internet sources, especially the International Association of Privacy Professionals, of which I'm a member, and its contributors. I've also leveraged my own experience as an IS practitioner and leverage experience of our team, as well as knowledge and experience from other colleagues in the field. So to get things started, we want to talk a little bit about what privacy really is. And in a general sense, privacy is really the right to be left alone or the freedom from interference or intrusion. When we speak about information privacy or data privacy, it's the right to have control over how your personal information is collected and used. And this impacts a lot of organizations because it will guide how organizations store your data in its three primary states: data at rest, data in transit, and data in use. So we may ask the question, why is privacy important? And there's been significant advancement in technology, and information privacy is becoming more complex because more and more data is being collected. As we like to say, data is a new currency. The one who controls the data can control a lot of things, including controlling the world, controlling political outcomes, as we have seen in our more recent past. And you know, for commerce purposes, you see the big giants that are taking great advantage of data to market their services to individuals. As soon as I got to 40, apparently the entire internet thought that I would need some kind of enhancement pills. You know what I'm talking about. You know, but what it does really is to leave organizations facing the complex task of ensuring that personal information is protected. It's also important from the standpoint of regulations, and we have heard recently about the General Data Protection Act, which incidentally has been out there since 2016, but it's only in 2018 that many persons across the globe realize the far-reaching impact of such legislation. Now, you will find that you know, security or data and data breaches are you know, taking over the news, the news reels front and center. Misconfigured databases exposes close to 1 million University of Washington medicine patients, and you know, China is getting in the mix in terms of putting in their agenda, and right across the globe, even here in Jamaica, the Data Protection Act has been tabled in Parliament. So everybody is moving in a direction of data privacy. So it matters. You know, never mind the fines that may come with the breaches of some of these regulations and everything. And as businesses, we have to understand how this will impact our businesses. We have to understand the jurisdictions in which we work, the jurisdiction in which we operate, whether or not we have business there or we have clients that are residents of those jurisdictions. We have to be mindful of that. And if that's not enough, we also have inherent business risks. Some industries have more than others. The healthcare industry has significant risk because it not only collects personal data, but some of that information is very intimate. You heard about Singapore, where there were breaches of data breaches for HIV patients and how it can affect the lives of individuals. Banking, whenever you go to do any kind of a banking transaction, open an account, the amount of information that they ask, I sometimes find very ridiculous. But if we want the service, most times we have to be willing to give up the information. But now, what the data protection legislations are saying is that when you data protection legislation are saying that you now have some controls. You can ask the relevant questions of the parties requesting the information, and you have a right to know how they're going to use your data. You have a right to dictate, and it can't be something from the perspective of automatic opt-in. You have to explicitly opt in. There's also other legal and compliance requirements. We spoke about the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation of the EU. We spoke about there's also others like the PCI DSS that deals with the payment card industry, and that's the data security standards. And then the healthcare industry has its own security and privacy regulations. So to get into the meat of the matter now, though, to implement privacy generally, or privacy as some of you may pronounce it, there are two main components to implement. One, you have to have governance, a privacy program governance. And this is what is going to ensure that your program is consistent, your program is being monitored, and there is general buy-in and oversight. And we'll get into more details of that. And then the part of it that most of us get very concerned about is the whole operational. How do you operationalize privacy? So we'll get into the privacy operational lifecycle management. So in putting any kind of governance program, the vision and mission is very critical. And when you get into privacy, you have to ensure that you have a mission statement, a privacy mission. Sometimes the overall organization mission incorporates privacy. Like, you want to let your consumers know that you have their interests at heart by telling them that you're going to protect your data and telling them how you plan to protect and to use their data, and ensuring that they have comfort, that there's transparency, they know what their data is being used for, and they can ask for a summary of that, the usage, without any delays in you providing that. You have to develop a strategy, and in developing a strategy, you will have to engage your key stakeholders. And we're talking about people from the C-suite, the Chief Information Security Officer, the Chief Risk Officer, the General Legal Counsel, the CIO, the HRM specialist, the Chief Marketing Officer. And, because these key functions are data is critical to these key functions operating as they should. You have to also look at your data governance strategy. And your data governance strategy speaks about how you collect information, the sources of the information that you collect, the getting authorization for use, who, what, when, where, how is the information being accessed? How do you secure the information once you collect it? And how and when is the information supposed to be destroyed, and how do you do that securely? The other thing is that you also have to ensure that in developing the strategy, you have to conduct workshops to ensure you train and educate persons to ensure that you get the kind of buy-in. Team structure and the team composition, and also the team training and qualifications and certification is also important. You know, and the team structure usually mimics different things. Like it will look at your overall governance model for your organization. Depending on the type and the size of your organization, the governance model could be centralized, decentralized, or it could be a combination of both, right? Then you look at your organization model. Large or small, you would have different privacy champions, and depending on the size of your organization, you may need a chief privacy officer. Some may settle for a privacy manager, and then you look at the whole competence of the team once you put together that team. And there are industry certifications and industry courses out there that helps to prepare an individual. I, for one, am a member, as I mentioned before, of the International Association of Privacy Professionals, having completed my Certified Information Privacy Management cert. And there are several others, and some of these, like the Certified Information Privacy Professional, are based on a region. You may have one for Europe, one for US, and depending on the region that you're in. And then you have the technical certifications. So regardless of where you fall, there would be something out there for you. Then we look at the framework. You choose and select a framework, and there is no one size fit all. When we think about framework, persons will go out there, they grab a framework, and they try to implement the framework, you know, by following everything that they see in the framework. And it may not be a good match for your organization. So you have to ensure that you select a framework that is aligned, or you can take bits and pieces of different framework and custom build your own framework. And that is something that you know, to put in a shameless plug here, Symptai can help you with, right? So the policy framework really is an implementation roadmap that provides a structured checklist to guide the privacy professional through privacy management and prompts for details to determine all privacy relevant decisions of the organization. The framework will assist in risk management. It minimizes incidents of data loss. It protects reputation and market value, and it aids in compliance to laws and regulations and standards. Some of the frameworks out there, like frameworks from APEC, the privacy framework, and it enables communication between entities, whether it be customer to business, business to business, business to government. You have guidance from the UK Commissioner's Office, the Canadian Personal Information and Electronic Documents Act, PIPEDA, the Australian Privacy Principles, and several frameworks are out there for you to leverage in your privacy program. There are some key questions that need to be asked when we talk about frameworks, right? Questions like, are risk defined, and is there a business case for your program? Who has responsibility? Who is the accountable person? Are there gaps in your private? Are the gaps identified and understood? Is privacy management being monitored, or will it be monitored? Are best practices for data inventory, risk assessment, and privacy impact assessment? Questions like those has to be asked. All right. Next in that, in order to be able to measure anything, then we have to come up with suitable metrics. And the metrics, like in any other case of governance, metrics has to be meaningful. They have to be measurable. They have to be specific, meaning, you know, they can't be ambiguous, right? So we have to look at how we identify these metrics, how we define them, what metrics we're going to select for what purposes, how we collect the information relating to the metrics, and the whole analysis, you know, making meaning out of the information that we have collected. I want to touch a little bit on the business case, and I won't spend too much time on that, right? You have to, whenever you're doing a program, once you come up with the governance, you have to develop a frame for your business case, and your frame is going to leverage several things. Key inputs in that frame is your own definition. What does privacy mean for your organization, your business? You also have to look at the laws, the regulations. What do you have to comply with? Where are you likely to have fallouts? You look at your technical controls. You look at external privacy organization and how those can affect you. You look at education and awareness, and you look at your whole program assurance. How are you going to ensure that this program works? So that more or less wraps up the governance side of things. And as I said before, governance is what is going to keep you going. The next thing is the privacy operational lifecycle management, and there are 4 key areas. And if you notice, there's no definitive entry point in this, because depending on how you plan to implement your program, you basically can have a start in anywhere, or you can start in different areas. There's no sequence necessarily, right? Because depending on the maturity of your organization or where you're at in your whole privacy life cycle, you may be doing some of these things already. So it's a matter of understanding what you're doing. To assess, there are several models out there that you can use in your assessment. The privacy maturity model is one such. The general approach to privacy and privacy by design, right? You also have to assess your business in terms of, what data do you have, what systems, how is this being processed, and everything. So we have to look at areas of the business such as internal audit and risk, information technology, business, which includes business continuity and disaster recovery planning, information security as it relates to response and breach notification, legal and contracts, compliance, mergers and acquisitions, and the list can go on. But in your approach and assessing business and the business needs as it relates to how privacy will impact the business, you have to look at all the different stakeholders in your operations. Protection has to do with 4 main things. The data lifecycle management, and I'll jump into each of these a little bit. Information security practices. You see privacy by design coming back again in protection, and I'll speak a little bit about that. And then you have the analyze and assess. The data lifecycle management principles really speaks about alignment with the enterprise objectives, minimalism, which means that you are ensuring that you collect the least amount of data that is necessary for you to carry out your business function. You're looking also at simplifying your processes, right? You provide adequate infrastructure. You look at information security. You ensure that the information that you're collecting, you can verify the authenticity of the records that you have. Ensure that things are retrievable when it's necessary to retrieve. You put it in distribution controls. You have to have some kind of say in how information is being distributed and used. And as with any program, your information, it has to be auditable. So you have to create the sufficient logging and everything for auditors to be able to review your processes. And you look at enforcement, and all of these has to be consistent with the policies that you have set up as you defined in your data governance, in your privacy governance model or privacy strategy model. Then there is privacy by design, and with privacy by design, I'm coming from the security space. So we'll talk about defense in depth or security by design. And what this means is that you're embedding privacy into the entire DNA. So if you're looking at a process, from you conceive the process, you're thinking about the impact that it will have on privacy, and you ensure that you're building controls from the ground up. All right, and that in a nutshell is privacy by design. Analyze and assess. You do your privacy impact assessment, you do your risk assessment. For sustaining the program, you have to look at your compliance with the privacy policies that you have set up, your compliance with regulations. In other words, you have to understand the environment that is out there. You have to know what is changing in the environment and how that affects you. If you are doing business in another territory, it will suit you to understand what their privacy requirements are. And I hate to pick on Facebook and our host today, but here's the thing. Now you find that Facebook, by its reach, is coming under a lot of pressure from different legislation, because they have crossed there are a lot of boundaries. And when I speak about boundaries, in this case, I'm speaking about territories that you have crossed, jurisdiction. We have crossed quite a few of those. So in doing that, right, they become subject to the regulations of those jurisdictions. We have to audit. All right. People do what you inspect, not what you expect. So we typically have to look at how our program is aligned, or operation is aligned. We have to look at how we are complying with our own policies, procedures, and standards. We have to access. We have to assess the whole modification of information and disclosure, and we have to learn how to communicate our findings. Communication being a big thing, there is also awareness. We have to ensure that there's flexibility. We have to maintain documents, and we have to continuously be training our people. Now, despite our best of efforts, things do happen. And when things happen, we have to be able to respond. Response may come in the form of persons requesting information about their own data from you, and you have to know how to handle those requests. If they are requesting that information be corrected, we have to know how we're going to deal with that. And generally in response, if your response is going to start at the point when you get the request, it means that you are very, very late. You're way behind the 8 ball, as the cliche would put it. So all of this, there has to be planning for this upfront in implementing your program. There's legal compliance, you're preventing harm, there's accountability, there's monitoring that we will have to consider. Incident planning, there are some, you have to define the roles and responsibilities that come in incident planning, and incident usually is a part of your business continuity plan. As we know, a privacy breach, especially of the European Union data protection regulation, it may render some entities out of business if they should have a significant breach and have not proven that they have been prudent in implementing controls. And then you have incident handling and incident management, how to notify, how to respond, how do you execute your plan, reporting, and how you handle reporting. And then when all of that is done, you have to go back now and evaluate your whole response program to make improvements, because it's always about continuous improvement. The long and short of it is that your privacy program, though it can be tedious to implement, there are professional organizations such as ourselves that are there that can assist you with this program. And so I will summarize with these. Define your privacy mission statement. That is going to help to guide and to communicate to persons what you're trying to do with the privacy. You look at your strategy, your structure, but you develop a framework, and the framework should be aligned to your organization. You ensure that you develop and communicate policies and procedures. You define your metrics, as I said before. You assess based on your own governance model, whether it be centralized, decentralized, hybrid. You protect your information, and we're talking about your data lifecycle management, your information security, and your privacy by design, embedding privacy in the organization. So it helps to understand how you collect, how you store, how you use, if you got the relevant authorization and all of that information. Your risk assessment, your privacy impact assessment is important. Responding to requests is going to be one of those key things. And if all else fails, and failure will happen, you have to understand how you're going to manage those failures. So in summary, that's about it. And if you should want to do additional reading, and I encourage you to, there are a host of resources, and I've just put a few of the websites that in preparing this presentation that we have visited and read through some in more detail than others. But it's a wealth of information out there on privacy now, more than you would ever dream. But again, you don't have to do it by yourselves. There are partners such as Symptai Consulting who is willing to help you in your privacy journey. So at this point, we're at the end of the presentation. I hope I didn't rush through. I hope I didn't lose anybody. We are Symptai Consulting, and we can definitely help you